Today is a very special day because we have our Prime Minister worshiping with us. And we want to take advantage of that. We want to ask her a few questions. We've kind of polled around to find out what questions are on most minds, and we've tried our best to put down a few of these. We can't ask every question, we only have a short time, but I want you to sit back and be blessed by it. It's a real pleasure to welcome her here again, and as she comes up to the stage, I'd like you to welcome her again, Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Theresa May. You may be seated. I must confess, I've always wanted to do this. I've watched on television as all the famous people have done this. So this is welcome to the Agu Irukwu show. I've always wanted to do that. Prime Minister, thank you for coming. A few questions we just wanted to ask. One of them is about the freedom of Christians and indeed people of other faiths to practice their faith. Some people have raised concerns that these historic freedoms are in danger and need to be protected. And so just wanted to ask, especially after we heard your charge at Downing Street, your Easter message to the church, where you encouraged us to do more to stand up for the freedom of people of all religions to practice their beliefs openly in peace and safety. And so just wanted to ask what more you will be doing to ensure that that freedom, that is one of the strongest things in this country, is not lost.
Well, thank you very much, Pastor Agu. I'm tempted to ask, are you going to be like Jeremy Paxman in your questions? But the issue that you've raised, I think, is very important, because it's fundamental in our democracy that there should be a freedom of religion, that people should be able to practice whatever faith they wish to, or indeed there will be those who practice no faith. But what we need to ensure is that people are able to speak about their faith and don't feel that it's something that they have to hide because this isn't possible within our society. And the freedoms that we hold very dear. But we also, of course, want to ensure that we deal with those who speak of hate. I think it's so important in our society that we do have laws that enable people to speak freely, to practice their religion freely, but that we also ensure that when we see people suffering from crime as a result of hate, that is properly dealt with. But one of the things I think we can all do in terms of faith, which is why I was pleased to welcome you and others to Downing Street at Easter, is to give some very clear signs of our faith and be prepared to talk about it so that people can see that that freedom exists, but also so there will be role models for people to look to and to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. As a follow-on from that, there's a growing feeling that the institution of marriage and family life are under threat. What can be done to support those institutions?
Well, I think it is important that we support family life. We know that when children are brought up against the background of a stable family, then they will do better than in some other circumstances. We've done things as a government like introducing the marriage allowance, which gives some support to families where perhaps one spouse chooses to stay at home and look after children, so they can transfer some of their tax allowance to the other spouse, so that there is some advantage there in tax terms. But again, I think it's important for us not just to use those means that government has to provide some support to families, but to ensure that we are helping, I think, particularly children to see understand relationships, to see the advantage of coming together in family life. I think you do quite a lot of work here in the church with some of your groups and your outreach. But one of the things we're doing is ensuring that there is good relationship education in schools, so that children can learn about how to relate to each other, but also can learn the understanding of the importance of those relationships for the future.
Thank you. Now, Jesus House is about 70 or 80% black and ethnic minority. We are part of a larger network of 752 churches that's predominantly black and ethnic minority. When we look in our society, we see that there is an underrepresentation of black and ethnic minorities in parliament, in politics, in the boardrooms, in the high echelons of industry, and really across the board. What can we do, and what will you do to change this balance? We know that you've done a lot in the last 10 years to get women into parliament. But we look forward to a time when we will see a greater representation of black and ethnic minorities in those key decision-making places in our society.
Well, I think that it's very important. I've always said that Parliament will make better decisions if it has a greater diversity of people in terms of experience in Parliament, because I think if you have people who've all got the same background, then the decisions won't be as good as if you've got people bringing different experience, different backgrounds into the House of Commons. And you're right, I've done a lot of work for getting more women in as Conservative members of Parliament, and co-founded an organisation that supports women to get into Parliament for the Conservatives, called Women to Win. We've got some great black and minority ethnic MPs. Of course, technically at the moment, during an election, none of them are MPs, they're all candidates, but we've had some great MPs and ministers, Sam Gyimah, James Cleverly, Kwasi Kwarteng, and others. And we've got some great candidates. If you look at Kemi in Saffron Walden, at BIM in Hitchin and Harpenden, we are seeing candidates coming through. But I think there's a challenge, actually, to all of us, where we see people to actually just encourage them to get involved in politics, and encourage them to think about politics as something that they can do, to think about being in Parliament as something that they can do, because it's a huge privilege to be a member of Parliament, because the decisions you take are about making a difference to people's lives. And I've always thought politics is about improving people's lives. So it's a fantastic thing to do, and I would hope, I have to say, I was very impressed by the young man who came up and prayed earlier. I would hope that you have some young people and others here, maybe, in your church, who will see being a member of Parliament in due course as something that they can do to give back to society and to work actively to improve the lives of others. Thank you.
So we hope very soon to have a member of Parliament from Jesus House. In January, my wife Shola and I were in Parliament for the launch of the Open Doors watch list of 50 countries around the world where Christians are persecuted. North Korea was the #1 country. A number of us here are from Nigeria. Nigeria, sadly, was number 10, if I remember rightly. Now, most of these countries have ongoing trade and diplomatic relations with the United Kingdom, which means the United Kingdom has some influence in those countries. So what can be done, in addition to what is being done, to protect our brothers and sisters who are Christians in these countries and who are persecuted? And as you well know, some of the persecution is horrendous. What can be done to protect them?
Yes, as you say, the persecution of Christians in some parts of the world is terrible. And of course, we saw just this week on Friday another attack on Coptic Christians in Egypt, with sadly a number of young people dying. I think it is important for us. One of the things that we can do as a country is to ensure that in our diplomatic representation, that our Foreign Office, our embassies, our high commissions are promoting the idea of the freedom of religion and freedom of belief. And I think that's an important thing for us to do. We've been doing this I've been very active in working against modern slavery, and we're already seeing some benefits from our embassies and so forth, taking out this message of dealing and stamping out with modern slavery. And I think we can do the same in terms of encouraging that freedom of belief and challenging where we see that persecution is happening.
Thank you very much. It wouldn't be an interview with you if we didn't mention Brexit.
So you are like Jeremy Paxman?
No. I'm a softer version. But for quite a number of people from the ethnic minority background, there are some concerns in some areas that Brexit won't favor them, might not work in their favor. I know that you were against it, but in your usual way, once the country voted, you decided we're going to go along the way the country voted. What assurances can you bring just to calm some nerves maybe of people who might think Brexit is going to definitely not work in their favor?
Well, first of all, if I may, you're absolutely right. I think it is important that we deliver Brexit because it was the majority vote of the country. And I think it's important in relation to trust in politicians that we actually, having asked people to make the choice, when they have made that choice, we should stand by it and be prepared to deliver for them. But what I want to do, if I'm re-elected, is to ensure that we get the best possible deal from Brexit for everybody. So it's for the whole of the country and for people across the whole of the country, whatever their circumstances. This is so important. We actually stand at a very important moment for our country because it is a moment of change. And we have to get Brexit right. It underpins, it's crucial for so much of what we will be doing in the future in terms of our prosperity and our place in the world. And those negotiations will start just 11 days after the election. So whoever is elected as Prime Minister has to be ready to go in there and fight for Britain. But it's going to be complex negotiations, but we want to ensure that we get a deep and special partnership with the remaining countries in the European Union, that we get a good trade deal, but we'll also be negotiating on cooperation on issues like security. And as I say, I want to make sure that that deal is good for the whole of the UK and for people from all backgrounds here in the United Kingdom.
Thank you. And this is very, very personal to us. There are a large number of churches like ours. They're made up largely of people who have emigrated from the Commonwealth. Some recently, some generation, at least a generation or two ago. These churches are thriving. They're very involved in their communities. They're doing things like getting young people off the streets, dealing with the gang culture. They're building strong families. And one of the challenges that churches like ours face is finding places where they can worship. This used to be an RAC center, and we've fortunately got it and converted it to a place of worship. We're not sure how long we'll be here because there's plans to regenerate this area. But there are even smaller churches. We have 752 in our network that are struggling for a place to worship. And I said this is very personal to us, what can your government do to help churches that are a major contributor to society, a significant part of our society, to find places where they can worship, to maybe ease the process of finding places of worship? I know that's a difficult question, but I just thought I would ask it. They would have my head if I didn't ask it.
It's nothing like trying. Yes. No, well, I mean, I can understand the problem and the issue from the point of view of the church, who looking to find places. And of course, you're not looking for small places from the sorts of congregations that you get. And obviously that can be difficult as you grow. And I think what is really inspiring is the way in which your churches are growing, but also, as you say, the significant work that you do. We were talking a little earlier.
Yeah.
It's not just about what happens here in this building on a Sunday.
Yeah.
It's actually about what happens all the other days of the week and the work that is done in communities as well. We have, and I'm going to be absolutely honest with you, because I don't think there's something that I can suddenly say to you, well, what government can do is this, and then you'll find all the places you need, and you'll be able to get the planning permission and so forth, because we obviously have the sort of planning system for people. But of course, if you have good local representatives who can help to fight for you as well, I think I got the impression Mike Freer had helped.
No,
he'd been very good in that. So
he's been very good.
So that's one of the things you can do. Have good local representatives who are going to fight your corner.
Thank you. That's a vote for Mike, I guess. Thank you. And then we got two questions from two young men. Alpha Menda was going to ask a question. Yes.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. My name is Alpha Menda. My dad's a pastor at this church, Pastor Mark, and I was wondering, what was it like growing up with a father who was a vicar? That's my question, yeah.
Well, as you know, there are certain things that happen in the homes of those who are involved in the church that are perhaps a little different. The fact that anybody can knock on the door at any time looking for help and looking for support. But actually that was a good, in a sense, a good training for me being a member of Parliament, because you are there at the service of others. I mean, one of the things I learnt from my parents, one of the things they did, which was very good, I felt, was that they didn't force me to go to church. They actually just taught me and said, it's up to you, you decide. And of course I am, as you know, a practicing member of the Church of England. What I learnt from them, and particularly what I learnt from my father, I think, was the importance of treating every human being equally, of not making prior assumptions about somebody, but actually recognising that we are all here, we come from different backgrounds, we have different interests and different problems, but his job was to serve everybody. And that's a message that I hope I have kept with me from my time in the vicarage. And the other thing I found in the vicarage was that because of all the services on Christmas Day, I didn't get to open my presents until very late in the evening.
And then we've got another question from a very bold 12-year-old boy, Fikumi. Where's Fikumi?
Dear Prime Minister, I just want to ask a question. So my name is Fikumi, and as some of us know, you're an only child. How was it like growing up as an only child?
He's an only child.
He's an only child. Gosh, do you know, I think that's the first time anybody's asked me that question in that, so well done. I think, as you probably know, I mean, as an only child, it's important, I think, to have lots of friends, and was an important part of life. But also, as an only child, I found that quite a lot of the time I would have to, because I was brought up in the countryside, so sometimes friends lived quite a way away. So I would have to actually, in a sense, make my own fun in terms of what I was doing. I think it was very good actually in exercising your imagination and creativity, because you have to think of things that you can do to have fun and enjoy yourself, which are not necessarily involving other people. I think the other thing that I found as an only child was actually I perhaps entered into more adult discussions with my parents because there was just the one of me. And maybe that's where my interest in politics started, an interest in current affairs. So that probably did have an impact on me. But I think it certainly helps your creativity and imagination, I think, as an only child, because it's you, and you have to think of those ideas of, as I say, having fun and what to do and so forth. But making good friends is an important part of it as well, and having those friendships to support you.
Thank you. And as we come to the end of this interview, wanted to ask for, in a sense, the last word, for your word of encouragement for this congregation as we just press on in life.
Yes, well, I mean, one of the things I would just like to say to this congregation in particular is that one of the things that I feel very strongly, and I've just said it in answer to one of the questions, is that we need to ensure that everything we do as government recognises that people are equal, human beings are equal. And I've done a number of things in my time as Home Secretary. I was very clear, for example, that nobody should be stopped and searched on the streets of this country because of the colour of their skin. I've worked with Black Mental Health UK because of the problem that we do see about people from black communities particularly being more likely to be taken into hospital as for mental health issues. These are the sorts of things that we need to address still in our society to ensure that we're not seeing disparities between different groups of people because of their background, because of their ethnicity. So I recognise there is still a lot to do. But as we look ahead to the election that's coming up, as I said earlier, it's a really important, I think, moment of change for our country. And one of the themes that I feel coming from this church today that I felt is a theme of restoration and of hope for the future. We have real opportunities, but we need to grasp those opportunities. And I think that by working together, by having a real unity of purpose in this country, we can ensure that we do build a stronger Britain, and we build a Britain where there is a better future for everybody, for every one of us.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Wonderful. Well, let's appreciate our Prime Minister. You may be seated. I enjoyed that so much that you just lost your pastor. I have a new vocation. I think I'm going to do that for a living. One more time, I appreciate our Prime Minister.